Week 5 is already over. It actually feels like I've just recorded week 4, but here we are, week's over. It went by in a bit of a blur, to be honest. Again, it was another really, really busy week at work, and it took a lot of my mental energy, and a lot of this tasks and a lot of the activities I actually couldn't really do until the weekend. So I really didn't feel like I got the full effect of week 5. And the whole idea about week 5 is, and the chapter's name is Recovering a Sense of Possibility. And I feel like this particular week came at the right time. Maybe that's what they all do, or they all come with a reason. But I really feel like that week 5 came at the right time, because I've been still having blocks, although I've had these moments here and there where I felt like I had a bit of a breakthrough and I was able to write or was able to think up different stories and things like that. But week 5 definitely felt a bit stagnant for me, I think, mainly because, yes, work got in the way, but the theme of this was really about finding out what are your blocks, what are your hurdles, what are the things that are really stopping you from doing the thing that you really want to do. And there's something that they really talk about a lot in the chapter 5 is, what is the payoff if I remain stuck? And obviously the answer is there is no good payoff, or it could just be like, I'll be comfortable, I won't fail, I'll be successful still doing what I'm doing, or like I won't look stupid, or I won't look silly, or something like that. And like, that's obviously the payoff, is you don't change and you still do the same thing. And that's not really what I'm after. Like, I do want change, I do want to do something different, I don't want to remain stuck. And I feel like this chapter is really good about diving into it. Got a few notes here. It's really about understanding what my self-made limits are, and then how I have defined them within myself as well, because obviously when it comes to barriers and when it comes to hurdles, a lot of time they are self-made. Like, I've put them in my way for a reason, so I don't have to worry about failing, or if I don't have to worry about, being stupid or worrying about what people think about me. And I think the whole idea about this is just trying to realize that it doesn't matter. Like, it's more about what I want at the end of the day. It's more about just being open to having those creative ideas come and then just expanding on them and just feeling free to be able to do it, rather than feeling that guilt and shame, which is one of the themes from the other weeks. And when it comes to creativity, it's understanding that there are no limits and there is an endless supply of ideas. And I really like the quote they had in here, is like, we must learn to let the flow manifest itself where it will and not where we will it. So I can talk about and wanting to have no barriers, or wanting to write, or wanting to have these ideas, but I can't like pick a time and place. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm like, on the weekend, this is what I'm going to do. And it doesn't work that way. And I'm really figuring out that it doesn't work that way. That sometimes I'll get an idea during morning pages, or it could be a shower thought or something before bed, or I could be at work and an idea will come, and it's just about expanding on that or taking note of that, rather than just like stopping it in its tracks and being like, I don't have time for this, or you just shut it down straight away. And that's kind of where those self-made barriers really come like front of mind. Like, they're the reasons why I haven't started, or they're the reasons why I have delayed. So it's really interesting kind of going through and then diving into that. There was a big emphasis in this particular chapter about the flow of morning pages and creating that stream of consciousness, that the morning pages really is where you want to work it out. And that's what I've been doing. So I've had a lot of thoughts about why I've delayed writing so much, and what it is about, the last 5 weeks, where some moments I have been writing, some moments I haven't. And yes, there's kind of a structure issue as well, but more about like, what's the reason behind that? So I can create a structure, that's fine. And I can, put those steps in place, but I have that block there. So why aren't I using that time block to be able to do that? And it's just realizing, and there's a big part about it, but it's about self-sabotaging. So they call it the virtue trap. And this really rang true for me, because like I said, I feel like I've been stuck, or like very stuck, but it's all about the need to be selfish, and like, that's okay to be selfish. And with the virtue trap, like, a big thing about it is like caring about everyone, putting everybody else's needs before yourself, but then, not putting yourself first in some scenarios, and not thinking about yourself and what you need. Is just that form of self-destruction, and you don't get anything accomplished. And I've been in that trap multiple times, like in my role at work, it's very much like a people role. I manage people and things like that. So their needs or the store needs or whatever come first. Not always, but a lot of times it's kind of like that mindset, and I sort of put myself on that back burner, and I can't do that anymore because it burns me out quite a bit. So it's more about understanding how I'm feeling. Have I actually checked in with what I need? Have I communicated with what I need? And then really focusing on how to, I guess, strengthen that, and then make sure I am listening to myself and what I need, rather than just pushing that all aside and just, being stuck in the motion or being reactive, rather than kind of like thinking about and being more self-reflective, if that makes sense. And what I really like about this is about finding a version of yourself who has no preconceived conceptions, and just about being that authentic person that you are. So whether it's, the version of yourself of when you were young, or the version of yourself that you're trying to create, or getting to like that original source, it's just about not having the shame, the guilt, the barriers, the self-destructiveness, and just trying to remove all that, just becoming that base self that can create, or that can, because I want to write. So just being open and just getting rid of all that, I guess, junk or like garbage in a way, and just being able to clear and being able to focus, I think is a huge thing. Yeah, like it's just a big thing of like deferring to the needs of others and just ignoring my own, and just being conscious of making sure I don't continue to do that. Obviously, it's still going to happen sometimes, and I think that's okay, but it's making sure it doesn't happen all the time, I think, is a big thing. Like, it's just I think I just needed this chapter, because it's all about just discovering what I'm not letting myself doing. Like, by creating that barrier, it's harder to allow the creativity to flow, because I get concerned with everything else around me. I get distracted with everything else around me, and I just use that as an excuse to like not do the thing. And I think that's the big thing of just letting everything else and letting the environment and the world around me be like, well, that's happening, so I can't do this, and just trying to get rid of that in general, I think. And that's what's so good about the morning pages, is actually like exploring that a little bit more, and just kind of figuring out why it's stopping me from writing and stuff like that. And like, I know I've said it like a few times, but yeah, it's been hard, but it's been good. And like I said, it has been a bit of an exhausting week, but with those morning pages, I'm still able to like dive a little bit. And like when I say writing, like I am writing morning pages. I'm getting a bit better about like writing a blog, but what I'm really talking about is creating a book, writing a book around like fantasy, sci-fi, like all that kind of stuff, and being really like imaginative about it. And I have all these ideas floating in my head, and I kind of have an idea of like what I want to write about, but it's just as soon as I sit down, like 5 other things kind of get in the way, and I'll, write like 100 words or 200 words and then don't do anything for like another month. And that's kind of like the cycle that it's been in. So that's why I'm really focusing on the artist way, to kind of get better at that habitual sit down, and just get better about accessing that flow state when I need it. Because again, like I can't plan for it. So it's just always about being like open to like when it does happen, I think is a big thing. With the exercises, it kind of just went through, again, it's like very, very like barrier based, but it kind of went through what would I do if I wasn't too crazy, 10 things I love but not allowed to do, and then a big long list of like I wish, and then what I wish the most. And it's kind of just going through with all that and just kind of figuring out like why I haven't allowed myself to do the thing, or like what's the reason. Like, is it money? But if you didn't have money, what would you do? And that was kind of one of the exercises in the task that you had to do. But with these particular things, like what would I try if I wasn't too crazy? Like the examples they have here is like skydiving, or like belly dancing, or buying like a drum set and stuff, or like traveling the world. And I really see like why they call it a crazy notion, because obviously, to drop everything and move overseas, or, if you've never played drums in your life and you suddenly buy a drum set, it does seem crazy to the outside world, but it's more about, you wrote it down for a reason, or it's something you're thinking about for a reason. So it's not really crazy to you. It just seems like crazy to others, I think is a big thing. And they had a bit of a virtue trap quiz that you had to fill out. So the first one was, the biggest lack in my life is, and I wrote writing because it is, and that's something that I really want to do. They talk about, as I play more, I work, I feel guilty that I worry that. So it's just more about finding like the true answers to these things. And the big thing, like when they have these particular exercises, try not to like overthink it too much and just write like the first thing that comes to mind. And I think that's a big thing as well, because you don't want like those responsibilities and all that kind of stuff and be like, try to be sensible. You just want to be true and like authentic when you do answer these. They have another particular exercise just around like forbidden joys. Like if you, so it says, yeah, list 10 things you love and would love to do but are not allowed to do. And it could be in here, they've got like go dancing, direct to play, like there's heaps of things that you could do. And it's more about, and what they write here is like, very often the mere act of writing out your list of forbidden joys breaks down your barriers to doing them. Post the list somewhere highly visible, so it's like front of mind. And that's kind of like, again, like all these like are really decent exercises, because again, it's just trying to find the root of like what those barriers are and like what's stopping you from being creative and being open to creativity, and, you know, giving up that kind of, what would you say, like giving up that power to that like creative spirituality or whatever it is, and just being open and, yeah, not putting like rules on it, I think, in a way. And when you have barriers, it's essentially like creating rules for yourself of like why something isn't happening or why you're not doing what you want to do. And again, diving into it's good. Like it's hard, and like obviously when something is hard and you're reflecting on it, you know you're on the right path and doing something, because, you know, the whole idea about the artist way, again, is to unblock your creative blocks, really. And how do you know what your blocks are if you don't know, or if you don't dive into like the barriers and things like that? And that's why it's really decent to be able to do it. Yeah, so then you have like, there's a lot of tasks in this particular chapter to do. Like they're not super extensive, but again, it's about diving in, and it kind of talks about, you know, what are your desires? Like, again, if you had imaginary lives, are there any changes to those imaginary lives? Are they still the same? Have you thought about something else that are different? If you had money in your 20s, like what adventures would you go on? If you were 65 and had money, and or money wasn't an issue, like what would you be doing as well? 10 ways I am mean to myself, 10 items I would like to own, my favorite creative block, and then the person I blame for being blocked. So again, it's all about these barriers. And I think for myself, where's my book? So some of the things I wrote for myself with these particular things was with the desires, just about being consistent. One day I'd love to, you know, have a house by the ocean, you know, have a family and have kids. Like it's just little things like that. With imaginary lives, like a writer, photographer, a lot of them are still the same that I really want to be. And again, it's just myself stopping me from doing that. So again, try not to have these barriers, or working through these barriers, so then I can easily break through when they pop up and get in the way of me wanting to write or wanting to sit down and just being open to whatever flow state comes my way. If I had money, list 5 adventures, like traveling across Europe or traveling around Australia. There's so many things to see, and there's so many things that you can do. 65 as well, very similar. Travel, like renovating a home, like creating a sustainable garden. Again, like writing is a big thing in there. 10 ways I'm mean to myself. So obviously words like self-sabotaging, like my overthinking, all that kind of stuff just gets in the way. And usually they do a list of 5, but it's really interesting they did a list of 10 for this one, because I think it's just really trying to figure out, like, when you're mean to yourself, that's like a barrier, and that's the thing that's going to like stop you and create shame and guilt and all that kind of stuff. So when you write it out, it becomes more tangible, and it becomes like, wait, that's just silly to think that, and it's easier to kind of defeat and overcome that way. 10 items I would like to own. That was kind of hard to do, to be honest, because, you know, I'm very lucky and live at an age where, like, if I do need something, I can buy it, or, you know, I have a pretty good sturdy job, so it just has access to these kind of things. So it was more about, I guess, the little splurgy kind of things that would be nice, or just, yeah, one day I'd love to have a massive like veggie garden, or like a beautiful like wildflower garden, or things like that. Just like little extra things that take time, that I wouldn't be able to like own straight away, that takes time and dedication to like cultivate. With the creative block, I said it's me really is my biggest creative block, and I'm the person that is to blame. And with the creative block, it's whether it's being like on my phone, or sometimes like reading can be a bit of a block for me, because I'll just get lost in a book, or I will be really, really interested and I'll keep reading and I realize it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, like way past the time I should be in bed. And that's kind of like a form of self-sabotage because again, it just delays myself for the next day. So it's being super conscious of that and then figuring out the reasons and everything behind it. And again, I can always use morning pages to like journal and get through this and stuff as well to really figure out, and then trying to stop myself from self-sabotaging so I can move on and write and, get through the next 6 weeks and, hopefully come out of the other side of being a better creative or just understanding where my roadblocks are and I can overcome them a lot easier rather than just, letting it just stop me in my tracks, essentially. All right, the check-in. So with the check-in, morning pages, I did 5 out of 7 again. I seem to just not be able to shake that 6th or 7th day. My partner Drew kind of joked around because he missed and did like a evening pages, and I will have to start doing that if I do miss it. Like that Thursday, Friday is really hard for me to do because it's a different schedule. So I think I've really just got to do like an evening pages, and then that way, although it does tick a box, hopefully it might be able to achieve something, because again, what I'm finding is I'm not really running out of things to say in my morning pages. Like I do have a lot of stresses, whether it's like work or overthinking stuff, whatever it is. Like it's very rare that I'll have like a moment of being like, I don't know what to write right now. And I think having those extra 2 days actually might be able to help and be able to have like a moment of being bored with what I'm writing. So I'll try and think of something different or something creative to write. So that will be the goal for this week. So rather than trying to get up earlier in the morning, I'm going to do a little bit differently and do it in the evening. So that should work. If it doesn't, then I got to dive into that block and figure out what my barrier is for actually getting those other days done. With the artist date this week, it really felt rushed, to be honest. I got a new laptop, which is amazing. That's one of the things to stop me from going into a virtue trap or stopping me from writing because my other computer was very, very slow. So I spent Saturday setting that up, which is always nice, like clearing out a hard drive and reorganizing. So I pushed back my artist date to the Sunday, but I overcommitted for the Sunday. Like I got my nails done, which is a nice little bit of self-care, but it's not super creative for me because I'm just sitting there and, I'll read or whatever it is, but it didn't really feel like an artist date. I went to go see my mum, which was long overdue. And then I gave myself like 2-3 hours to do something artistic. So I had an old frame that I picked up ages ago, like a mirror frame, and I've been wanting to paint it for ages. So I did, but it was very rushed and I felt like sweaty and hot and just trying to like get it done. And I didn't feel rested as I normally would after an artist day. And, Monday came around and I was just tired, whether I'm like feel like I'm getting sick or whatever it is. Like I just didn't feel as rested as I normally would. And over the last couple of weeks, obviously going outside for an artist date is way more refreshing. But even when I had a few at-home ones, I think just being rushed and kind of like being a bit careless about it and just like pushing it to the back and just doing it literally last minute on a Sunday afternoon was not the best idea. And I now understand that. So it was the only time I've done it out of the last couple of weeks. Usually I'm pretty conscious about it, but I'll make sure I won't do that again because I know about the artist date. It's all about being refreshed and just helping you be open and helping you, think about whatever it is. But if I'm too tired, if I'm too exhausted, then that's all I'm going to be thinking about. I'm not going to be open to anything. I'm just going to want to sink, within myself and just be a bit mopey or just want to read or just be like avoidant. And when I'm in one of those moods, like I'm not going to get any writing done or anything as well. But actually, I did push through and wrote something or did a blog yesterday. So that is that. But again, it took a lot of effort to be able to push through that and actually do it rather than being full of energy and being like excited to do it. Is more of like I've got to do this because if I don't do this now, I don't want to leave it till last minute. So that was a good push through. But again, I'm still very tired today. So it's just more about understanding to don't push it back. Do it earlier so I feel more refreshed and I get the best and the most out of the weekend. I think will be a big thing. Did I experience any synchronicity this week? Not really. I was very, very busy at work, different hours, long hours, a lot of like a mental drain. So I didn't really have a lot of breathing room. And because I was in a very exhausted state, I wasn't really open or willing to be open to have creative thoughts or want to be able to write or anything like that. I just wanted to be a bit numbed, I suppose. Sometimes that does happen when I have a really, really busy week, that all I want to do is just read or just avoid. But again, that doesn't help like long term. So one thing I really got to make sure I'm doing is those artist dates are super refreshing. Like it's just a really nice form of self-care. So I think if I had a proper artist date, I might have experienced a bit more synchronicity and I might have experienced a bit more like freedom with that. But yeah, it wasn't the best week and it went by really fast, and it is a new week now, and being focused on, you know, having a better artist date, focusing on self-care, really understanding, really utilizing my morning pages, really making sure that I'm creating that space to be able to write. So when ideas do come, I'm able to say yes and not shut it down. So yeah, this huge focus for this week is just getting kind of like back on track and feeling 100% and just making sure that I have the opportunities to be able to, I don't know, when the creative God strikes, I'll be able to just sit down and be able to write and have inspiration and all that kind of stuff, which I think is always the goal for the synchronicity. So any issues? Pretty much not allowing work to become that barrier and deplete me so much so I don't feel like doing anything. I think that's the big thing. So really knowing what I'm doing at my work, really knowing like how it's affecting me, and then doing things to kind of like counteract that so it doesn't affect me so much. Because again, last week, super busy, like super tired, super exhausted. So I just need to know that if I do have a tough week, then I do have a good artist date lined up, that I do have something that can really replan and fill my cup so I don't feel so, I don't know, like unmotivated, and, you know, like I do have the energy to be able to want to do the work and want to be excited and stuff about it. That's the whole thing. Like I want to be excited. I want to be passionate. I don't want to be like tired and just want to go to bed. So I think, yeah, a big thing is not letting work become a barrier, really focusing on my artist date and things like that. So then, you know, I do have the energy and the drive and the want to be able to do what it is that I want to do. And that's the whole point of the artist way, is really just trying to figure out what the barrier is, what's stopping me, and just, yeah, actually getting through the next couple of weeks. I mean, almost halfway through, and I really see where it's going and I really see the benefit. I just want to be able to stick with it, and I'm not going to give up. That's the whole thing. Like I'm going to keep going, but I really want to make sure that I really utilize the task and really utilize like the exercises and the notes and, you know, the chapters, like they're there for a reason. So I want to make sure that I don't try to not skip it, but I'll make sure I'm getting the full effect and not leaving to, you know, do the exercise and tasks like last minute. I want to make sure that I have breathing room around it and I've got plenty of time, and that I am really understanding the 12 weeks of what the artist way is and its purpose for it as well. So yeah, here's to the next couple of weeks, and fingers crossed that I feel a little bit more motivated and I'm less tired, and, you know, I don't let these barriers get in the way, and, you know, next week I'll be a little bit more happier about it, I think. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.